All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to our 3:30 session here at Powderkeg Unvalley on the leadership, HR, and recruiting stage. We're going to talk about debatably the hottest topic right now, and that is the modern workplace, remote, in-person, or hybrid, and taking a dive into the future and what that looks like. So I'm excited to have a couple people joining me for this conversation. First, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Casey Bolsiga, head of partnerships here at Powderkeg. And excited to host this conversation on something that I know everyone is thinking about and everyone is putting their plan in place, if you will, in terms of their strategy. So before I dive into it and introduce our guest, just wanted to mention that if you have some questions about this, you'll see on the right-hand side, we have a stage chat and you can put your questions right there. I see Lori is encouraging those questions, so put them in the stage chat on the right-hand side and we will do our best to answer them. But don't worry, I have some questions prepared as well. But let's go ahead and get started. First, I want to do a brief introduction for our guest. We have Clarence Bethea, who is the founder and CEO of Upsie, and he's passionate about helping the consumer and motivating other entrepreneurs in building relationships. He believes, he says, I believe every person I meet can teach me something, and I love to learn. Jumping headfirst into the tech industry has brought successes and many failures. My failures have taught me my failures have taught me the most, and I continue to grow from each lesson. I'm passionate about giving back to others and helping them through their journey as I've supported through mine. Man, that's awesome. I appreciate it. Clarence, thanks for joining the conversation today.
Having me, super excited to be here.
Absolutely. And then we got Justin Mitchell as well, who is the CEO at Yak, a three-time founder whose previous ventures include an IPO, funding from Adobe and InVision, and now nearly 10 million raised from firms such as Slack, GGV, and BetaWorks. His work has been featured in Wired, the Wall Street Journal, as well as TechCrunch. Justin, good to see you, man. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Awesome. And then we have Alex Steinman, the CEO of the Coven. Prior to founding the Coven, she spent nearly a decade in advertising and public relations in major agencies as a senior communications strategist through an independent practice to help women business owners tell their story. After the birth of her first child in 2014, she started a blog for working mothers called Strong Like Mama, documenting the ups and downs and sideways of working parenthood while telling stories. Telling these stories have been an outlet for creativity and helps her really just fulfill her life's work in building equitable spaces for diverse communities. That's awesome. Alex, it's great to have you join this conversation. And I'm going to dive right in. First and foremost, we've all experienced big changes to the way we work the past year. So going forward, Alex, I want to start with you first. Going forward, what does the modern workplace look like to you?
Well, that's a personal question, Casey. The way that we think about the modern workplace at the Coven is really based on, the privilege of having a choice, right? So the privilege to choose where you work. And so often folks don't have an opportunity to choose where they work. Most BIPOC communities do not. But when we think broadly speaking about, folks who are in the corporate workplace, folks who are entrepreneurs and who do have that privilege of choice, folks are looking for flexibility. As the co-founder of the Coven, which is a community and workspace centered on the experiences of women, non-binary, and trans folks, we have both for members in our community. So we have folks who have an employer who are trying to navigate this new world of stepping back into physical workspaces. But what we hear most from our members is that they're looking for a place where they can feel safe physically and psychologically, being able to, especially, after a year of being like hunkered down and literally feeling uncomfortable leaving your house. And so now they're looking for spaces where they can kind of step back into a new normal, a new sense of security, and a new sense of flexibility. So, and that could mean a lot of things. That could mean childcare on site. That could mean and out of working from home and working from a workplace. And so I think the biggest thing that you're going to see here in the coming years is just the need for that kind of flexible and nimble environment.
Yeah, I love it. Justin, would love to get your thoughts on how you think that modern workplace is going to work out.
Yeah, I mean, she nailed it in kind of the sense of inclusivity. We talk about inclusivity a lot at Yak, just in terms of what you know, the classic workplace looks like, and how you know, use that to improve it over time, just for different types of people. And at Yak, we're thinking about, what about someone who doesn't feel comfortable in a meeting and they can't speak up because they don't like performing on stage, they don't want to be on a Zoom call. I like doing things like this. Not every one of my company likes doing that. And that's a lot of what our software is built around, is that idea of inclusivity, and that reaches really deep into just workplace. Whether you, like Alex said, are a new mother and you just need flexibility around what services are offered at your actual office, or the ability to just stay home one day because you can't go into the office that day. Kid is sick and needs to be taken care of, whatever it might be. We're constantly talking about just the inclusivity aspect of it. And there's a lot of it that has to do with different lifestyles, different types of workplace environments, either physical or expected. A big part of your workplace is the expectations around showing up for a meeting at 3 p.m. Maybe your kid gets off of school at 3 p.m. and you need to drive to go pick them up. There's a lot of things that can be done inside of a workplace that don't necessarily have to do with the physical location that you're working from, just the culture and environment of expectations around you being online and available at any time. New parents can't necessarily do that. And the expectation that you should and have to be online and have that green status indicator on Slack, it pushes away from that inclusivity aspect of, well, I'd like to actually go travel the world. And it means that I won't be on the same time zone as the rest of the company. Our backend developer, Derek, he used to work for a big company in Redmond. And he asked them, hey, I'd like to travel the world with my girlfriend. This is what I, was doing before I started to work with you. I'd like to do it again now that COVID's slowing down. And he asked them for that ability. And they said, sorry, you can live in one of these 4 countries because we have tax nexuses there. And so he hit me up and said, can I, live from anywhere, work from anywhere, and work for Yak? I said, absolutely. We'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. And he's in the Ukraine right now, and totally different time zone. And he still participates in our daily stand-up check-ins. We still hear his voice every single day because apps like Yak enable that, but also a workplace culture of work from anywhere, work whenever, work however you want. As long as you get your stuff done, I don't really care, how you're doing it. And so a lot of that has to do with having a culture of inclusivity across family, race, location. Disability is like a huge one. Just like I can't even physically get to an office because that's very inconvenient for me, depending on what disabilities you might have. And of course, just location. We're really big on leveling the playing field across like the global market. You should be able to get hired from anywhere and have the same job with the same type of pay as anybody else at our company, regardless of what country you live in.
Yeah, great point, Justin. Clarence, curious how you're approaching this from the work that you're doing at Upsie.
Yeah, I think Alex hit it on the head, and Justin just made a great point. Giving people the freedom to live their lives, and not just live their lives, but live their best lives. Like I think one of the biggest compliments that I get as our founder is like watching our company. One of our employees bought an RV, a pretty nice one. And next month, we'll see when we get back. Had missed the thing, had just done phenomenal work. But we were like, hey man, we really don't care where you're at, as long as you work at, I don't care where you're at. I don't care what time you work. And they're looking at me saying, well, if you can do it, can I do it? Yes, please go do it. I want to see you at, Disney World. I want to see you on the road. I want to see you on Twitter, in Spain. I think bad leaders are going to force their employees to come back into the company and off. And I think there's going to be so much talent out there for the rest of us that really get it.
I saw, like you said, bad leaders. I saw the new CEO of WeWork put out a statement recently that was like, your most engaged employees will come back to the workplace. And I just thought that was so short-sighted and tone deaf to the moment that we're in right now. Saying that like, oh, your most engaged employees will be the ones who want to come back to work, because that's just not how life is anymore.
That's totally backwards. I mean, your most engaged employees. I mean, engaged is such a bad term anyway.
What does that mean?
productive employees maybe should be the right word,
Yeah.
but like should be working less hours, less time, wherever they want, whenever they want, because they're able to get their stuff done because they're really good workers. And you should offer them the flexibility to, like you said, the privilege of choice. They should be able to work from wherever they want to work from because they're a good employee, and you reward that good work that they put out.
Right.
Is it something that you all hit on? And I think it's good to know, like, is it about performance? Like, can you just simply look at performance when you're measuring that, Justin? Can you simply look at performance as that output and make that the main determining factor?
It depends on how you're measuring performance, right? Is it
right.
input based or output based? We always talk about this like butts and seat mentality that a lot of companies have. I remember when I was pitching Yak like really early on, I had a VC actually tell me, well, if they're not on, they used to do like Zooms, like all day Zooms, like a 1 8-hour Zoom. And he's like, if I can't see them sitting in their seat, then they're not working. I was like, man, that's so backwards. Like, that's such a bad mentality to have because it's not about the input that matters. It's about the output. If you're a really, really good employee and you can churn out an amazing amount of work in 2 hours and you're done for the day, like, dude, go relax, like lay on a couch, go to Disney, like Clarence said, right? Like, I hope that you do that because I got my work out of you. You accomplished your tasks. I don't really care how long it took you to do it. I'm certainly not going to force you to sit in front of a camera for 8 hours a day just so I can prove that you're sitting in a seat. And that's that butts and seat mentality that a lot of companies still have, which it's input based. It's, I need to see that you're putting in this much work. And that's a lot of times how productivity is measured is like, are you doing enough? I don't really care what you do as long as I get the results. Right? If I get the results out of you and you can do it in 2 hours, awesome. Then you're just an amazing employee. And that means that you get to relax more. And it doesn't mean that I get to give you more work. It means that you get to relax more. There's a big difference there.
Yeah. Justin, I think we've made the mistake in constantly thinking that, our generation, this startup culture generation has like made the mistake that work has to be like work is your life and life is your work and you're identified with your
absolutely. And also this whole concept of like your work family, like, oh, we want you to love who you work with so you'll spend more time with them. And it's like, dude, no, we all have families that we want to like go offline and enjoy. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Peace. I'm going to go spend time with my wife. I'm going to have dinner with my kids, whatever it might be. No, I don't want to hang out with my work family, right? This is work and it's okay for me to get done with it.
Right. And here's a dirty little secret that nobody wants to talk about in tech. Like, we all go through sprints where it's like crazy amount of work that needs to be done. And we got to do this over 2 weeks and we got to get it done and get this out. And then there's those periods of like, hey, there's not much work happening. Like we're kind of chilling, we're kind of coasting. And you kind of go in and out of that flow. Nobody needs to be like busting their ass for, can we curse on this panel? It's too late now. It's too late now.
Too late.
Oh, it's live. Well, we were already screwed then.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like work shouldn't be that. And I think Alex makes a great point. Like, we grew up in this generation where like you like work is your life. Like, I tell our team all the time, like, look, I care about you. I want you all to be successful, but we are not a family. Like, that's not who we are. Like, we're going to respect each other. We're going to have grace with each other, but we're not going home with each other.
We just had a great question in the chat here from Anne Marie, and she says she's seeing a lot of policy setting questions in some of her HR groups. And she's asking, are you seeing a tendency towards policy setting as that like return to remote? Like, is it about the employer saying this is the policy and establishing that?
I think it's about
what I did in my company, and maybe Alex can talk about what she sees in other companies. Like we have just a ridiculous paid holiday and personal day policies set up in like Gusto. And it's just like, dude, you need a personal day. You take it, it's unlimited. You can take as many holidays, paid holidays or paid personal days as you want. And that's our HR policy, right? It's like, you need a day off because you're just not feeling it today. Take the day off. I don't know, Alex, if you're seeing companies that are setting up policies based off of hybrid work or not.
I think I don't think people have figured it out yet. That's why this conference is happening, because like people are like, I don't know, they're like trying to put these policies in place. It's like, but I truly think that the miss here is that you have to be really clear about what your expectations are. So if you need people in the office, like I own a co-working space. I own 2 co-working spaces. I have people who have to be in the space. Like you can't work remote if you're the GM of this location. So like we have to be clear about you have to show up between these hours. I don't care what you do outside of those hours. Get the work done that needs to get done, whether it's in the space or not. I think you have to like have those really clear expectations for people, because what happens is it's like, yeah, we're going to try this flexible work thing. But then when half of the team is anticipating people being in the office and the other half of the team are anticipating being off site, your wires are going to get crossed and people are going to feel like they're missing something. So being really
intentional.
intentional.
In interviews, like, do you tell people hiring like, hey, this is an on-site position?
This is an on-site thing. Yeah. Yes. I mean, especially for our work. But when I see like other organizations, because we have a lot of clients who are, corporate folks who are buying memberships for their organizations, they're trying to be really intentional about, we need you in the office 3 days a week, or we don't care where you are, like Clarence's policy. I don't care where you are, just get the work done. But if you have a status and you're expecting people to be there, So I think while this like flexibility is really important, it's also important that you as an organization understand and are very clear about what it is that you want people to do, because otherwise you're going to end up with, we're going to see like women being like slipped out of the workplace again, because, you say it's flexible. And so I have to be home because my kid is sick, but then I miss the big meeting and I miss the opportunities to connect with people. And then, the next thing, and, promotion is up and I don't get it because I wasn't there. And so I think like we're going to step into this flexible workplace, and we're going to need to be like, to your point about like equity and inclusion being really important, like this is like new with flexibility. And so we're going to have to get really clear about what our expectations are in our organizations.
So curious, because obviously there's it seems like we know that future is going to be some blend, some hybrid, right? If you as a company, as a leader have said, hey, we're going to have an office as a place, a physical office space, but we're not going to require people to come there. Any ideas or thoughts or trends that you're seeing of like what that office space can be used for?
Now we have a central office in Kissimmee, Florida. We use it, I don't know, once a month maybe. And it's just, actually right now it's more of a storage container, but it's got like swag boxes and stuff in it. But we go like once a month and have like fly some people in if they need to be flown in. Like we just went to a Magic game here in Orlando, flew everybody in, drove everybody up, reimbursed all the tickets and all that stuff, and all went to a Magic game and hung out. And that was kind of like it was like a retreat in some ways. It was non-work function for sure. It was just like seeing people. There's people on the team that I'd literally never met in real life ever since the inception of the company. I've never met them. And they've been working for the company for like 2 years. And that's sort of what the office becomes, I think. It's like hangout spot. Like this is where you sync up, see people, play some ping pong, relax, chill, maybe do like a sync up, one work day, everybody gets to work in person type of thing. But I don't think it will be, like this, everybody comes in every day and checks in and that's how they clock in for the day. I think it will be a place for camaraderie and connection and things like that, which companies need. Like you need to, hang out and bond as human beings. And I think that's what you'll see. Like a lot of these bigger companies like Google and Facebook have these massive campuses that they've built over the years. They'll end up being like places where teams get together to hang out and enjoy each other's company.
Yeah, there was a conversation yesterday with the CEO of Ironclad, and he said like one thing he was missing is the last day of the quarter, like that last day of the quarter in the office and all the energy and excitement and camaraderie that you see with that. I just thought that was an interesting example, not necessarily something I would have thought of, but like, yeah, this is an example of where it could make sense to have that office space still.
Yeah, we've noticed it here in Minneapolis, like the real estate market is insane right now, like housing wise, but in commercial real estate, it's like a ghost town, like nobody's leasing things. So it's this really interesting kind of thing for startups. So we moved our location in Minneapolis to a different location. And right now we're like, this building that I'm in right now is actually the upper floor of an advertising agency that was sitting empty over the year of COVID. So I think, to your question around, what's going to happen to these like spaces where people were convening pretty frequently, is I think there's going to need to be like some finding of symbiotic relationships where like, companies can like pair together, because to your point, Justin, if you're only meeting once a month, why are you paying, $8,000 in rent, wherever you are, to like.
And I think this is maybe why co-working spaces will become even more popular, because those are inherently shared and you don't have to have a lease that you don't feel like you're using.
Exactly. And if you can offer like a benefit beyond the physical space, whether that's like, we offer like virtual programming around personal and professional development. If you can offer those types of like added perks, it's something that's an incentive to come into the space and connect with one another. But it's also, a great recruitment tool and retention tool.
Yeah, Clarence, how is the team set up at Upsie?
Yeah, so about, I don't know, maybe 60% of our teammates are here in Minnesota. But our last the last 40% of the company has been hired remotely, and we actually just moved into our office maybe 2 months before COVID hit. I wish COVID would have hit sooner, so when it got locked in. But it's been fine. Some of our teammates they go in when they want to. Every now and then they may want to get away from the kids for the day or the family for a day. But we're being extremely flexible. We don't have PTO. Like Justin said, like you want to take a day off, you just literally Slack and say, hey, I'm out of the office today. I'll see y'all tomorrow. And nobody says anything about it. So, just trying to create an environment where people feel like they can live their lives while they work and not the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I'm thinking of is we're talking about the pandemic, kind of shifting forward. Thoughts, and I think Alex, like this would be a great perspective of you working in a co-working space, being in these. How does the vaccine or vaccinated people versus non-vaccinated people, how does that play into it?
Yeah, it's interesting with like the mask mandates lifted here in and across the country. It's been we like immediately when it happened here in Minnesota, I was like, oh God, our inbox is going to be just like blowing up of members saying like, what are you guys going to do? And we decided to keep masks in our space, in our common areas, until more of our community is vaccinated. I'll bring up the disparities again, because I think it's really important to note, like while 70% of white folks in Minnesota have been vaccinated, it's like in the 20% for BIPOC communities. So not everybody is getting vaccinated at the rate that, it looks like, it's like the majority of people are, but, our most vulnerable. And so we're really making sure that, anybody who walks into our space, vaccinated or not, is protected. And so we're keeping our masks until we know those numbers are a little safer. But because physical and psychological safety has been a part of our business pre-COVID, like it's something that we think about now stepping into COVID is like maintaining distance. Might encourage masks like during flu season, like, it might not be required, but it would be something that's like, hey, like, I don't want to get sick. Like we like nobody got the flu this year because we were all like masked up and safe distance from each other. So I think, employees in general stepping back into workplaces, I think it'll be kind of on their terms. They know who they interact with on, whether they're interacting with grandparents or maybe somebody who hasn't been vaccinated or can't get vaccinated, like, we have to take care of each other. If we've learned anything in the last year, it's that, we're working as a community, not as individuals. And, we're truly stronger together from an immunity perspective. So I think it's important to have those conversations with your employees and make sure that they're on board for protecting one another.
Yeah. And Alex, something that you all talked about earlier, and I forget, you worded it perfectly. I was trying to find it. I forget how you worded it, but having the privilege to be able to work remotely, to work in an office, right? When you think of, adapting and bringing new people into a workplace setting, what are some of those ways that you can do it? Obviously, technology is one of those, but outside of just like technology, and Justin, I'm sure you can pick up on the technology side, What are some of the things that you're seeing are working of making someone feel part of that workplace, even if they aren't right there physically?
Yeah, well, I think people are kind of sick of Zooms, but from connectivity piece, I think it's going out of your way to like get to know an individual. My husband actually started at a larger corporation here in January and hasn't met anybody in person. And so, they're like having these like deep discussions about, race and politics and things. And he's kind of like, I don't know any of you. Like, this is super weird. So I think, going out of your way to make kind of like one-on-one connections with people, to get to know them a little deeper, to get to know like what is their Disney World, like what would be living their best life, and then helping support them in that way. Because to Clarence, I don't think that's like a very normal environment to live in, unfortunately, or to work in. And so, most people coming into that environment aren't going to be used to that. And so we're going to help them like unlearn some of those unhealthy practices of overworking themselves, like dehydration, like, no sleep, those types of things. So how do we, step into that and get to know folks? Yeah. Lotion up.
It's water. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was like a bottle of lotion. I'm like, sure, yeah, keep your skin hydrated. That's important too.
I've been refilling this and it's clean. But yeah, it's exactly it. I had to stay really hydrated today.
Exactly.
And added to that, I can't tell you how many times somebody has joined our company and they just go hard. Like they just go hard for like a week straight. And we're like, whoa, time out. TV time out. I need you to slow down. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Like, we're going to be okay. And they just like, well, I'm just so used to being like driven hard. And like, that is how I have my value. And we're like, well, your value is not attached to your work with us. So we hired you because we thought you were dope. We didn't hire you because we thought you were going to work 100 hours a week.
That's a very common thing. Like, I see Steven in the chat said one-on-ones are huge. And we found a lot of that through one-on-ones in general. Like, talk about Derek earlier, who lives in the Ukraine right now, is he was working. So at one point in time, I had asked him to like fix something, and he kind of like went off on me and was mad. And he was like, man, I'm working like 12-hour days. Like, this is ridiculous. And I was like, whoa, you're working 12-hour days? I was like, why? We didn't ask you to work 12-hour days. And he was like, well, it's just so much stuff to get done. I was like, yeah, get it done the next day, man. Like, please do not work 12-hour days for us. I was like, oh my God, like I have failed somewhere if you're working 12-hour days. And it was just an expectations thing. Like, I didn't, we're all working like 5-hour days, and he was just disconnected from that culture of we don't work 12-hour days. And, I had to tell him, like, dude, if you feel like you have, like, I know you have a lot on your plate, but just do it later. Like, there's not a lot of pressure here to like get all of your stuff done super quickly. It's fine. Just work on it tomorrow. If you're, almost done with something and you feel like you need to crank it out for your own personal edification, like, fine, but don't ever think that I'm over here, judging you that you logged off early. Like, log off early, man. Like, and, a lot of that comes from, like Alex said, being really intentional with your conversations and checking in. So like now we do like biweekly check-ins. Jordan, who's my, COO, is kind of playing like the HR role, and he will say like, all right, everybody, like in his Yak stand up for the day, I'll say, everybody, here's my calendar link. Everybody grab a time. We're doing our, ones again. And it's a great way to just check in and be like, hey, how do you think communication is going? How do you feel like deadlines are going? Are you frustrated with anybody in particular? Are you frustrated with yourself? Like, one of the biggest things that I found in culture building in general is just like asking people if they like what they're working on. Because sometimes you just end up assigning stuff to people that they just generally hate, and they're doing a bad job with it. And you're like mad that they're turning in stuff late or not getting it done on time. And then you ask them why, and they're like, dude, I hate this stuff. Like, it's not fun for me. And I'm like, okay, well, let's move you to something else and we'll hire somebody to do that. Or I know somebody else on the team that would love to take that role off of you because they like that type of work. But yeah, just like really checking in with the team, going out of your way to talk to them. In Yak, we started doing a question of the day. So in our stand-ups, everybody will do their stand-ups, and then one person will be like, all right, I'm going to claim the question of the day today. What is your favorite guilty pleasure food? And then that's how I found out that like Juan really likes like gas station ice cream, right? Like just like cheap like cones from like a gas station freezer or whatever. And that's how I found that, Raina really likes the soup from her grandma that she made that like nobody else can duplicate, but it's only from her grandma. And you get those little tidbits and those facts. And it helps a lot in building relationships and knowing how to start kind of like fun conversations with people. I'll again, Casey, I guess, gave me the layup to plug the technology side of things, but we love stuff like Yak for the purpose of hearing other people's voices, and it's just that you can hear tone and emotion that way. It means emotions don't flare when you're giving somebody harsh feedback on a design or something, but also for just like the little things that you hear in other people's voices day to day. One of the stories I love to tell is I'm driving down the road, listening to my Yak stand-ups for the day, and my designer Raina goes, "Good morning, everyone. All right, today I'm going to be working on," and my wife goes like, "Oh my God, like, why would you send that Yak? Like, if you're yawning in the middle of your Yak, cancel it and, send a new one." So no, I love it because now I know Raina's tired and she had a long day and maybe she didn't sleep well last night. And there could be a reason why she didn't sleep well last night. Maybe she's sick. Maybe she had a bad day, but it allows me to say, "Hey, like, I heard you're a little tired today. Like, if you need to take a half day, take a half day. If you need help with something, let me know." And it gives me an opportunity to check in with her because I heard her voice. And these are things that you miss out on in the physical office. And so when you have a hybrid workplace or a fully remote workplace, you have to kind of like go that extra mile to notice when someone's tired, notice when someone's sad, notice when someone's angry, and give them that extra kind of like love and care that maybe you would notice in the break room when you see someone who's like passed out on a desk. You don't see that in remote. That doesn't happen as much. And so you have to take that extra care to reach out and say, "Hey, how can I help you?"
Yeah, so true. And obviously, if you can't see the chat, this is a hot topic. There are so many different people that are like, continue the conversation. And I would love to, but unfortunately, we are out of time. So what I'd say is if you look back up in the chat and you want to continue the conversation with Alex, Justin, or Clarence directly, we shared their LinkedIn and I think their Twitters as well. This was awesome. This was such great perspective. And I loved hearing both the challenges, the successes, and just the way that you all are approaching this when it comes to the modern workplace as we're all living it and changing it and kind of watching it change right before our own eyes. So that'll do it for this session. Alex, Justin, Clarence, thanks again for the time and the conversation and sharing your wisdom with our community. That's going to do it for this stage today and for the 2 days of Unvalley. But be sure to look up all of our guests on LinkedIn, follow them on Twitter. I saw that Justin just dropped his Yak. If you want to voice message him, I'm going to have to do that and catch up with you there. But hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Be sure to check out the closing keynote on the keynote stage. And then we're going to be doing some networking and expo at the end of the day. I'll be hanging out in the Powderkeg booth. If you want to stop by, hop on camera and have a beer, I'll catch you there.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Yeah.